Every day, millions of students step into classrooms across the world. They smile, laugh, and join in, doing their best to appear normal, to fit in. But behind those smiles, many carry a silent weight, the exhausting art of masking. Masking means suppressing natural behaviors, hiding stims, forcing eye contact, mimicking social cues to blend into a world that doesn't always understand difference. Masking is not just imitation, it's survival. It's the mind's way of saying, if I can appear typical, I might be accepted. But this comes at a cost, emotional, physical, and psychological. For many, masking begins early. A look from a peer, a laugh after a misunderstood joke, a teacher's correction like, "Look at me when I'm talking to you." The child learns the unwritten rules of belonging. Hide what feels different. Copy what looks normal. Blend in. Don't stand out. In that split second, a lifelong performance begins, a quiet adaptation to expectations that are never spoken aloud. Masking is not visible to most. It's a series of tiny calculations every minute of the day. When should I laugh? Did that joke make sense? Am I making enough eye contact? Too much? Am I talking too fast? Too slow? Each thought adds weight, until even a simple interaction becomes a mental marathon. By the end of the day, the mask feels heavy. The smile is still there, but the energy to hold it is fading fast. When the mask comes off, the exhaustion hits. Muscles ache from tension. The mind races with self-analysis. Did I say the wrong thing? Did they notice I was faking it? Masking demands constant vigilance, and the toll is invisible to others. The longer the mask is worn, the more it fuses with your identity until even the person beneath it begins to blur. Inside, there's a conflict, a tug-of-war between authenticity and acceptance. One voice says, "Be yourself," but another whispers, "They won't understand." The mask promises safety, but at the price of truth. It's a form of protection that becomes a prison, silencing self-expression and turning joy into performance. Over time, the mask reshapes identity. The line between who I am and who I pretend to be fades. Many who mask for years describe feeling hollow, disconnected from their own emotions, unsure of who they are when the performance stops. People have said things like, "I don't know what my real personality is anymore," or "I change depending on who I'm with," and "when I'm alone, I just collapse." This confusion isn't a weakness. It's the consequence of living in environments that reward conformity over authenticity. Masking doesn't end after childhood. It follows us into adolescence, college, and the workplace. It's a performance rehearsed over years, so natural it feels automatic. As we get older, the stakes rise. Reputation, social belonging, employment. So the mask stays on, polished, practiced, and perfected. To the outside world, someone masking might appear confident, capable, even charismatic. Inside, they're calculating every gesture, living two realities at once. But even the strongest mask can't be worn forever. Under stress, fatigue, or isolation, it starts to crack. The smile fractures like glass. The person beneath gasps for air. When the mask slips, emotions flood through: confusion, anger, grief, and sometimes relief. It's a collapse and a revelation all at once. This moment, though painful, can also be the beginning of authenticity. What happens next depends on the response. If the world offers judgment, the mask rebuilds stronger than before. But if the world offers understanding, safety, patience, and empathy, the mask can begin to come off piece by piece. Understanding begins with one question. What are you feeling right now, and how can we make this space feel safe for you? Behind every mask is a person longing to be seen, to belong, not because they've conformed, but because they are accepted as they are. Understanding masking isn't about labeling. It's about listening, believing, and creating environments where no one has to hide to be valued. The mask doesn't appear out of nowhere. It forms slowly, shaped by messages, spoken and unspoken, about what is acceptable, what is rewarded, and what is not. The body remembers that moment, the sting of laughter, the glance of confusion. And in that memory, a rule begins to take shape. Hide this part of you. It's not safe here. Masking is not deception. It's adaptation, the nervous system's way of saying, survive first, express later. Children learn through mirrors. They watch faces, gestures, tones of voice. From these cues, they piece together what earns smiles and what earns silence. Little by little, patterns emerge, the behaviors that bring approval and those that bring correction. In that moment, the lesson is learned not through words, but through emotion. I am safe when I seem the same. Every human body speaks the language of safety and threat. When we feel understood, our bodies open. Breathing deepens, muscles relax, the world softens. But when the environment feels unsafe, too bright, too loud, too unpredictable, the body retreats. Shoulders rise, breath shortens, the mask slips on. Masking begins not in thought, but in body memory, the subtle instinct to shrink, to blend, to survive. Belonging is not a luxury, it's a fundamental human need. The brain is wired to seek connection, even at the cost of authenticity. So we mimic. We study faces, tones, and rhythms of speech, assembling a version of ourselves we hope will be accepted. It's not about pretending to be someone else, it's about trying to become someone others will stay beside. In every act of masking lies a quiet plea. Please don't leave me out. To an educator, masking can look like success. The student appears engaged, cooperative, calm. But beneath that surface, the body is in a constant state of alert. Every sound is measured, every reaction rehearsed. Outwardly, focus. Inwardly, survival. The smallest act of understanding, a calm tone, a pause before correction, a gentle presence, can remind the body it's safe to finally exhale. Masking is an equation the brain learns to solve over and over. If I act this way, they'll accept me. If I don't, I'll be alone. Each social rejection tightens the rule book. Each moment of acceptance reinforces the performance. By adolescence, masking becomes second nature, not a choice, but a reflex. Masking works. It grants short-term safety. But it also drains the energy that authentic connection needs to grow. Safety built on suppression isn't real safety. It's a performance of comfort that hides the ache of loneliness. Every smile, every forced laugh consumes energy until the flame burns low. There comes a day when the system says, no more. The body can no longer sustain the performance. The nervous system, tired of pretending, rebels. This is not a breakdown. It is the body's return to honesty, the moment when suppression becomes impossible. What looks like sudden distress is often years of silent endurance meeting its limit. True science isn't just about neurons and neurotransmitters, it's about the human drive for safety, belonging, and balance. The nervous system is not broken, it's communicating. It's saying, I want to connect, but I need safety first. When we meet that message with patience instead of pressure, we turn survival into trust. Masking fades when belonging feels unconditional. That's when the nervous system and the person can finally rest. Why do we mask? Because the world has not yet learned to see difference as beauty. But when we build spaces of safety, where authenticity is not punished but welcomed, the mask no longer serves a purpose. The science of survival transforms into the art of being, where no one has to hide to belong. For those who mask, every school day carries an invisible weight. It's the weight of a continuous performance, of measuring every movement, every word, every glance. To an observer, a student might seem calm, composed, even confident. But inside, their mind and body are in a constant state of calculation, trying to navigate an intricate maze of social expectations. Each gesture is deliberate. Each smile is rehearsed. Even small interactions, a simple greeting in the hallway, raising a hand in class, require careful consideration. Will this be accepted? Will I stand out? Will they notice I'm different? Masking is exhausting. It draws energy from the very core of your being, leaving little left for curiosity, joy, or spontaneous thought. It's like running a silent marathon, one careful step after another, hour after hour. By midday, the energy for authentic connection is already depleted. Laughter becomes mechanical. Conversation feels transactional, and even just moving around feels like a chore. Each carefully rehearsed social gesture consumes energy, and the flame of vitality burns lower with every forced smile. Anxiety often shadows those who mask. It's the constant anticipation of judgment, the endless scanning for any cue of disapproval or exclusion. Moments that seem mundane to others are filled with uncertainty. Am I speaking too loudly, too softly? Am I moving correctly? Did they notice that I flinched? These moments accumulate, unseen by peers or teachers. The anxiety is continuous, low-grade, and insidious, a persistent current flowing just beneath a surface of outward calm. This creates a deep dissonance between what's expressed externally and what's experienced internally. Joy, fear, curiosity, or discomfort all might be hidden behind a practiced smile or a neutral expression. The world sees only what the mask allows it to see. The self, however, feels the entire storm raging inside. This constant incongruence breeds fatigue and confusion, making it hard to remember where the mask ends and the authentic self begins. Masking can also lead to profound isolation. Even when surrounded by friends, a student might feel unseen, misunderstood, or completely invisible. Connection comes at a steep price. Suppressing natural behaviors, regulating impulses, and hiding the very things that make them unique. They are surrounded by people, yet they live in a quiet, separate world, always performing, always monitoring, always calculating. Extended masking takes a heavy toll on a person's identity. When who you show the world isn't who you truly are, self-doubt starts to grow, and confidence erodes. Students often find themselves questioning, am I really this person, or am I just what I pretend to be? This uncertainty can cloud memory, emotion, and the sense of self, leaving many feeling lost even in the most familiar environments. It's a silent erosion, invisible to those who only ever see the mask. The strain isn't just psychological, it's physical. The body responds to this constant pressure with tension, fatigue, headaches, and even gastrointestinal discomfort. Every attempt to conform leaves a trace in the nervous system, keeping the body in a constant state of fight or flight, even when everything seems calm on the outside. By the end of the day, the mask has demanded what the mind and body can barely spare. When the mask finally slips, often when the person is alone, a flood of emotions can be released. Frustration, sadness, anger, or relief can emerge all at once. Tears may come, sometimes seemingly out of nowhere, as all that internal tension finally finds a way out. This release isn't a sign of weakness. It's the body reclaiming its energy, the mind asserting its presence, and the self reminding itself that it exists beyond the performance. Years of this can lead to burnout. Energy becomes a scarce resource, focus falters, and motivation wanes. This chronic exhaustion isn't laziness. It's the inevitable result of years spent hiding, performing, and suppressing natural responses. Burnout is the silent toll that the world rarely sees, and one that can have lasting impacts on mental health and self-esteem. Masking also blurs emotional clarity. Students may feel joy but suppress it. They may feel frustration but outwardly just nod along. This tension creates internal chaos. Feelings are present but muted, reactions are delayed, and self-awareness becomes clouded. Over time, it becomes harder and harder to even recognize one's own emotions, let alone communicate them effectively to others. But despite the exhaustion and stress, the desire for authenticity always remains. It's a quiet, persistent voice that says, I want to be seen. I want to connect. I want to exist without hiding. Even brief moments of acceptance, understanding, and validation can strengthen resilience, offering glimpses of a life where the mask is no longer necessary. The emotional toll of masking is profound, woven into every gesture, every smile, and every pause. But it doesn't have to be this way. Compassion, understanding, and creating safe spaces allow people to finally wrest the mask, to breathe, to express, and to reclaim the pieces of themselves that have been hidden for so long. Acknowledging this hidden cost is the first step. Creating spaces where authenticity is welcomed is the next. Masking is often invisible. A student may sit perfectly still, smile appropriately, and nod when others speak. And yet, inside, they are engaged in a continuous internal performance. The outward behavior can be deceiving. A student who seems attentive and composed may be navigating a complex web of sensory, social, and emotional pressures. Recognizing masking requires noticing subtle signals, micro-expressions, small repetitive movements, slight hesitations, or overly rehearsed responses. These behaviors are not distractions or defiance. They are adaptive strategies, born from a need to survive socially and emotionally. Each action tells a story of resilience, caution, and constant calculation. Observing the energy behind the behavior is key. A student may appear compliant, but their body often reveals tension, shallow breathing, a clenched jaw, tightened shoulders. These physical cues indicate the inner effort required to maintain the mask. They are signals that the student is coping, not that they are disengaged. Eye contact, often seen as a measure of engagement, can be misleading. Too much eye contact can be exhausting, a learned performance. Too little can signal anxiety, discomfort, or a strategic avoidance of overstimulation. Educators must look beyond standard expectations, understanding that masking can hide true engagement, stress, or curiosity. Over-preparation is another common strategy. The student rehearses interactions mentally, anticipating social responses and evaluating outcomes. To the observer, the performance seems effortless. Behind the scenes, however, the mind is actively monitoring every movement, every tone of voice. This constant cycle is tiring and often invisible. Many students engage in self-stimulatory behaviors, natural ways to regulate emotion and sensory input. When masking, these behaviors are suppressed or hidden. It's a form of covert regulation, allowing the student to maintain appearances while managing internal tension. Suppressing these natural behaviors adds mental strain, compounding fatigue and the emotional load. Social mimicry is a survival skill for many who mask. It allows students to blend in, to be accepted, and to avoid scrutiny. Yet this comes at a cost: constant monitoring, delayed spontaneity, and a diminished sense of their authentic self. Overcompensation is also common among students who mask. They may strive for perfection in academic, social, or behavioral performance to counteract perceived differences. This effort isn't vanity. It's a protective measure. Excellence becomes armor, hiding vulnerability beneath a polished exterior. Even the most skilled masker shows subtle signs of fatigue. Withdrawn posture, delayed responses, or sudden quietness may indicate that their energy is depleted. These are not acts of disinterest. They are signals of the monumental effort required to maintain the mask, quietly pleading for a reprieve. Stress manifests subtly yet persistently. For educators, noticing these silent signals is critical. A bouncing foot, tapping fingernails, or darting eyes indicate where support is needed, even when the student outwardly appears composed. Recognizing these cues allows educators to intervene thoughtfully, offering space and understanding before exhaustion or emotional strain accumulates. Even the most vigilant maskers reveal glimpses of authenticity. These moments are fleeting but revealing, windows into the student's true self, offering insight into their interests, personality, and needs. Recognizing and valuing these moments can foster trust and encourage gradual, sustainable authenticity. Masking is complex, subtle, and often invisible. It is a survival strategy shaped by years of adaptation, social learning, and the need to belong. Educators who learn to read the hidden signs, the micro-expressions, subtle gestures, shifts in posture, and fleeting moments of authenticity can recognize the effort, validate the experience, and provide space for relief. By noticing what is often unseen, classrooms can become environments of safety, understanding, and trust. Where the mask is no longer required, students can finally breathe, learn, and thrive as themselves. The first step to helping someone feel they don't have to hide who they are is simply to pay attention. Every single person communicates, but often in ways that are easy to miss if you're not looking. Little things like a subtle change in expression, the way they hold themselves, a restless fidget, or where their gaze lands, these are all messages. By just observing without jumping to conclusions, we create a space of awareness and empathy. This simple act of being present lets people begin to relax their guard, to feel truly seen for who they are. Predictable routines are a huge part of feeling emotionally safe. When things are uncertain, when plans change without warning, or when expectations are confusing, it can amplify that need to put on a performance, to mask. But when you know what's coming next, the schedule for the day, the signals for transitions, the clear classroom norms, you spend less energy worrying and calculating, and more on learning and just being yourself. This isn't about being rigid and boring. It's about providing a reliable structure, a scaffold, that lets everyone participate safely without the constant fear of making a social mistake. Think about how our senses affect us. Bright fluorescent lights, constant loud noises, or crowded rooms can be incredibly uncomfortable or even overwhelming for some people. To avoid standing out or drawing attention to their discomfort, many will hide their reactions behind a mask. But by making small sensory adjustments, we can change everything. Offering things like softer lighting, quiet corners with headphones, or different seating options like wobble stools or standing desks can make a world of difference. These accommodations allow students to manage their internal state while still being part of the group, which means less need for constant self-monitoring and hiding. Giving people choices is incredibly powerful. When we have a say in how we participate and learn, we regain a sense of control over our environment. This feeling of agency lightens the pressure to mask, because we can engage on our own terms, not under the heavy weight of someone else's expectations. Whether it's choosing to work in a group or alone, or having the option to share an answer verbally or write it down, choice communicates respect. It shows that we value each person's individuality, and that builds the trust needed for them to be their authentic selves. It's also crucial to model emotional honesty. When we, as leaders or educators, share a little bit about our own moments of frustration or nervousness, it sends a powerful message. It normalizes vulnerability and shows that being authentic is more valued than putting on a perfect performance. For instance, just taking a visible deep breath before tackling a tough question demonstrates a healthy coping strategy. When authenticity is the norm, students feel much safer expressing their own true feelings without fearing judgment. Never underestimate the power of small connections. A simple greeting at the door, a quick, quiet check-in with someone who looks tense, a gentle smile, a nod of acknowledgement, these tiny moments add up. They communicate awareness, empathy, and genuine care. When students feel seen and valued as individuals, they're far less compelled to hide behind a mask. Their energy can shift away from just surviving the social situation and towards genuine engagement and participation. These small, consistent gestures gradually chip away at the need to perform. Providing safe ways for people to express themselves is another key. This helps reduce all that internal tension that can build up. Things like journaling, having art supplies available, or allowing for quiet movement and stretching give students healthy outlets to process their emotions and sensory experiences. When you can express yourself without fear, the mask starts to lose its purpose and the real person has a chance to emerge and shine. We also need to be flexible with our social expectations. Rigid rules about participation can make masking much worse. But when we allow for different ways of engaging, people can join in without fear. This could mean making group work optional, letting people choose their partners, or giving everyone enough think time before asking for an answer. This flexibility in both social and academic settings sends a clear message of safety and acceptance, which is the perfect environment for authentic engagement to blossom. Breaks should be seen as a preventative tool, not a punishment. Allowing students to step away for a moment when they feel overstimulated helps them self-regulate, preserve their energy, and ultimately reduces the need for masking. A quiet corner with soft lighting and headphones isn't a timeout spot. It's a resource. When students can take a moment to reset, they can return to their work with a steady breath and relaxed shoulders, protecting their emotional and cognitive resources for learning and authentic connection. The language we use shapes reality. We can create a much safer environment by praising effort instead of labeling behavior as good or bad. By fostering respectful discussions that acknowledge different viewpoints and encouraging collaboration without forcing everyone to be the same, we build a culture of inclusion. This kind of non-judgmental communication that celebrates individuality makes people feel safe. It reinforces that it's okay to be different, making masks feel increasingly unnecessary. Peers are a massive part of the social equation. If classmates are taught to understand and accept differences, whether in learning styles or social interaction, the pressure to conform and mask goes way down. Things like peer education on neurodiversity, empathy exercises, and celebrating the unique ways people contribute can transform a classroom. When you feel socially safe among your peers, you also feel emotionally safe. And that freedom allows everyone to express themselves more authentically. Ultimately, reducing the need to mask is a gradual journey. It's built on a foundation of careful observation, flexible routines, genuine empathy, and authentic connection. When the environment is right, when the mask is no longer a tool for survival, something amazing happens. Energy returns, creativity blossoms, and learning becomes a joyful experience. Students can finally thrive, not as performers trying to fit a mold, but simply as themselves. Masking isn't a fleeting act. It's often years in the making, shaped by repeated social lessons, the sting of rejection, and that relentless need to belong. Over time, the body and mind carry the accumulated weight of these performances. For some, the cost remains hidden until adulthood. Burnout, anxiety, depression, and a faded sense of self can emerge long after the classroom lights have dimmed. The emotional debt of masking is cumulative. Every forced smile, every hidden stim, every carefully policed gesture adds to an internal ledger of exhaustion. By the time someone reaches their teens or adulthood, their mind might be carrying years of effort spent just on survival rather than on authentic self-expression. The longer the mask is worn, the deeper the chasm grows between who you are and who you pretend to be. Years of masking can blur the line between the self and the persona. You might start to question which behaviors, preferences, or emotions are truly yours, and which ones were just cultivated for acceptance. This struggle with identity can show up as self-doubt, indecision, or a nagging difficulty in trusting your own instincts. Rebuilding that sense of an authentic self often requires intentional effort, a lot of patience, and most importantly, supportive environments. Masking takes a heavy emotional toll. Depression, anxiety, and stress are common outcomes, not because of some inherent weakness, but as a direct result of chronic performance and suppression. The body remembers the constant state of high alert, and the mind internalizes patterns of self-monitoring that can stick around long after the original triggers are gone. Awareness, reflection, and safe accepting spaces are absolutely essential for healing the long-term impact of masking. The skills developed to mask in childhood don't just disappear, they carry forward into adult life. And while masking might help with short-term social acceptance, it can seriously limit authentic relationships, professional confidence, and long-term social satisfaction. You might excel on the outside while feeling completely isolated on the inside, disconnected from both yourself and the people around you. Without awareness and support, masking creates these subtle barriers to intimacy, trust, and personal fulfillment. Healing begins with awareness. Recognizing the patterns of masking, understanding where they came from, and acknowledging the emotional cost are the very first steps toward restoration. Safe environments, with supportive educators, peers, and caregivers, provide the space for individuals to explore their identity without fear. This awareness allows for choice. For the first time in years, you might begin to ask, who am I really, beyond the mask? Reclaiming authenticity is a gradual process. It's built on small acts of courage, speaking your mind honestly, moving your body naturally, allowing your personal quirks to show. Each small moment strengthens the connection between your internal self and your outward behavior. With each act of authentic expression, the mask loses its power, and your personal resilience grows stronger. Supportive spaces, whether in schools, workplaces, or communities, are like accelerators for recovery from long-term masking. Acceptance, empathy, and flexibility allow individuals to reclaim the energy they used to spend on performance. These environments reduce the need to always be on guard. They help restore emotional balance, and they encourage authentic participation from everyone. Over time, individuals develop resilience. They learn to navigate social expectations without compromising their authenticity, to regulate their emotions without constant suppression, and to maintain self-awareness while still engaging with the world. Resilience is the outcome of awareness, acceptance, and those crucial supportive spaces. It's a long-term restoration of the self that was hidden behind layers of masking. Living beyond the mask isn't just transformative for the individual. It ripples outward, shaping relationships, classrooms, workplaces, and entire communities. Authenticity fosters empathy, understanding, and inclusion, creating environments where other people feel safe enough to be themselves too. The courage to be yourself becomes contagious, inspiring a beautiful cycle of acceptance and growth. Beyond the mask lies hope. The potential for deep connection, for meaningful learning, and for genuine creativity is vast. When individuals are supported, guided, and understood, they can finally fully inhabit their own identities. The future is brightest when authenticity is valued, and every single person is allowed to exist as they truly are. The long-term impact of masking can be profound, but it is not irreversible. Awareness, supportive spaces, flexibility, and empathy allow the self to emerge, to thrive, and to connect genuinely with the world. Living beyond the mask is not a single moment. It is a journey towards self-recognition, authentic connection, and a life lived fully. Students who mask often rely on subtle cues from the adults around them. Teachers, caregivers, and mentors play an absolutely critical role in shaping the environment where authenticity can finally emerge. Their awareness, their empathy, and their actions can be the deciding factor in whether a student feels safe enough to lower that mask. Recognizing these cues isn't just about observation, it's the first step in transforming our understanding into meaningful, life-changing support for them. Observation isn't surveillance, it's empathy in action. It's about seeing, truly seeing, the students in our care. When adults notice those subtle indicators, the micro-expressions that flash across a face, a sudden shift in posture or repetitive stimming behaviors, and respond without immediate correction or judgment, students feel seen rather than scrutinized. Think about it. A teacher noticing a student's constant fidgeting, their delayed responses in class, or a smile that doesn't quite reach their eyes. Or a caregiver who silently observes their child during quiet play, offering space but staying attentive and present. This kind of mindful observation is the foundation for creating trust. It helps reduce the immense energy that students have to spend every single day just to keep their masks on. Predictable routines foster a deep sense of emotional safety. For students who mask, knowing what's coming next is a huge relief. It significantly reduces the constant anxiety and the pressure to perform socially. Imagine a teacher who walks students through the same morning routine consistently, every single day. Or a classroom where schedules are displayed visually, maybe even color-coded for transitions to make them easier to follow. At home, a caregiver can structure predictable routines for homework, meals, and even bedtime. This consistency sends a powerful, unspoken message. This space is reliable. You are safe here. Safe routines aren't about being restrictive. They are the scaffolds that allow students the freedom to engage authentically, without fear. Validation is one of the most powerful tools we have. Simply acknowledging a student's feelings, whether it's frustration, anxiety, or excitement, signals that all emotions are acceptable and don't need to be hidden away. When a teacher kneels down to speak quietly with a student, listening with their full attention, they're communicating value. When a caregiver says, "I see you're frustrated right now," that's completely understandable. They're giving that child permission to feel. You can often see the result immediately: a visible relaxation, a release of tension in their shoulders, a nod of understanding. This emotional availability requires patience, attention, and presence. They're small acts, but when they accumulate, they build a powerful foundation for authenticity and a true sense of belonging. Flexibility is absolutely key. Rigid, one-size-fits-all expectations can dramatically increase masking behaviors because they leave no room for individual differences. By offering flexible ways to participate, we allow students to engage without that constant fear or performance pressure. For example, in a classroom, students could choose between a group discussion or writing their thoughts down individually. Or maybe they could have the option to give verbal responses during activities, but it isn't mandatory. At home, a caregiver could offer a choice in how a homework project is presented or encourage different forms of creative expression. Offering choice communicates respect and fosters autonomy. It reduces anxiety and promotes authentic engagement. Through these flexible options, educators and caregivers create spaces where masks are simply no longer necessary. Self-regulation skills empower students to manage stress without having to rely solely on masking. It's like giving them a toolkit for their inner world. When adults model and teach these strategies, like deep breathing, mindfulness exercises, or taking short movement breaks, they're providing practical, effective tools for authentic coping. Picture a teacher demonstrating deep breathing exercises with a group of students before a test. Think about classrooms with quiet corners, fidget tools available, or the freedom for a student to take a quick walk. Or a caregiver who gently guides their child through calming techniques after a stressful event. When students learn how to regulate their own internal state, their reliance on masking naturally decreases, and their emotional resilience grows stronger day by day. We can't forget that peers influence masking behavior profoundly. The social pressure to fit in can be overwhelming. Educators and caregivers can play a huge role here by facilitating, understanding, and teaching students to see differences as strengths, not as liabilities. Think about classroom empathy exercises where students share their feelings and discuss their different perspectives. Or programs with peer mentors who guide inclusion activities and model acceptance for everyone. Imagine small groups that celebrate diverse strengths, unique interaction styles, and different ways of thinking. When we create inclusive peer environments, we reduce that social pressure, allowing students to relax and let go of their masks. By actively fostering empathy and inclusion, adults help students build genuine connections without having to compromise their authentic selves. Ultimately, the role of educators and caregivers is not to forcibly remove the mask for the student, but to create spaces where it is no longer needed. It's about building an environment of trust and acceptance. Through consistent, mindful observation, genuine validation of feelings, and flexible routines, we lay the groundwork. By teaching self-regulation skills and fostering peer inclusion, we provide the scaffolding that supports true authenticity. Through consistent awareness, compassion, and intentional strategies, adults can completely transform the environment. We can help students reclaim their energy, express themselves freely, and truly thrive beyond the mask. The journey beyond the mask is a journey toward authenticity, connection, and self-acceptance. It's not just one big moment, but a whole series of small steps. These steps are supported by empathetic adults, inclusive friends, and environments that are actually designed for understanding. You see, authenticity doesn't just happen overnight, but when it's nurtured, it completely transforms the way students experience learning, relationships, and even themselves. When we start celebrating authenticity, we begin by recognizing the small victories. Every single time a student chooses to express themselves instead of just performing, that's a triumph. It's a way of reclaiming their energy, a quiet but powerful assertion of who they are. These victories might seem minor from the outside, but they are absolutely monumental in the journey toward living beyond the mask. Providing opportunities for self-expression is essential. Things like art projects, music sessions, and creative writing activities in the classroom give students a chance to explore their identity, share their unique perspectives, and build confidence. When adults provide the space, the guidance, and the encouragement, they amplify these opportunities. They help create a culture where masks are optional, not necessary. Expression becomes the bridge between a student's internal self and the external world, which fosters both learning and well-being. But connection is the real heartbeat of authentic engagement. Empathy from adults and peers creates an environment where differences are accepted, and those masks just lose their protective necessity. Being able to connect authentically with others isn't just liberating, it's completely transformative. Of course, living authentically requires a lot of courage. Students need to learn how to advocate for their own needs, ask for support when they need it, and express their feelings without being afraid of judgment. Adults who model and reinforce these skills are empowering students to maintain their authenticity even when things get tough. Self-advocacy is basically a declaration that says, "I am allowed to exist exactly as I am." The long-term impact of this authenticity extends far beyond the classroom. Students who feel safe, validated, and accepted carry these powerful lessons with them into adulthood. They navigate relationships with more empathy. They approach challenges with resilience, and they participate fully in both learning and in life. Living beyond the mask cultivates growth, creativity, and well-being. It's a legacy of empowerment that ripples out through entire communities. Celebrating individuality is what truly reinforces authenticity. When a student's differences are not just tolerated, but genuinely recognized and valued, masks become unnecessary. Diversity then becomes a source of strength, curiosity, and inclusion, a foundation for both personal and collective success. Acknowledging every individual's unique gifts nurtures their confidence and encourages them to keep exploring who they are. The path forward is really a vision of hope and possibility. When adults, peers, and institutions all decide to prioritize authenticity, students no longer have to waste their energy on maintaining a mask. Instead, they can channel that energy into curiosity, creativity, and connection. This is a world where students can truly thrive as themselves, where the journey beyond the mask is celebrated, supported, and sustained for the long run. The celebration of authenticity is an ongoing process. It requires constant awareness, deep compassion, flexible structures, and consistent support. It's not some final destination you arrive at, but rather a culture, a shared commitment to valuing each and every individual exactly as they truly are. Living authentically transforms lives. It restores energy, it nurtures self-expression, and it builds resilient, compassionate communities. The path forward is bright, it's open, and it is infinitely possible. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. If this story resonated with you, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more content that explores the power of authenticity. We'd love to have you as part of our community.